How did you get that to work? Do you have to do anything?
Maybe it's just different. Maybe it's not HTML1. Maybe it's the other.
Maybe this just wasn't all the way.
Other inputs.
Oh yeah, there it goes. Okay. Checkins.
What is a check-in?
What is a check-in?
Because I can post a note to my website that says, "I'm at IndieWebCamp, Düsseldorf," in words. But what's the difference between that and a check-in?
That is the eternal question, and that is something that helped me finally get around to doing check-ins on my site. So, Foursquare is a canonical example of a check-in.
Yeah.
And I think I can see my check-in history from the web. That's not the case. No, it's not the case.
You pull up see over here, right?
So, Foursquare Swarm is what everybody thinks with check-ins, and the main thing that it does, different from the Twitter app, is it's built around the idea of venues.
Yeah.
Right. So it shows you nearby venues, and you can search for venues to check in. After it's created, it doesn't look that much different from just, like on Twitter, just text. So it's like, here's the check-in. And it just has the name of the venue and the person's name and face. So previously, what I had been trying to do was replicate, or think about it like Swarm check-ins, where everything's based around venues.
Yeah.
And creating my own venue database so that I have a list of venues I've checked into in a database, or database in quotes, could be just text files, whatever, but some list of venues on my website, and then associating posts with those. And that seemed like there were a lot of things involved in that, a lot of decisions to make, design decisions, implementation decisions, and I never got around to doing it because I never could come up with good enough reasons for any of the different options. And I realized that if I don't start with the assumption that I need that, then the problem becomes a lot easier.
So I'm currently geotagging now.
Oh yeah, so geotagging, there's definitely a noticeable difference between check-ins and geotagging.
Okay.
And I think we've captured some of this on the wiki.
It all comes back to a venue.
Because you can still geotag with a venue. You can on Instagram you can post a photo and say it's at this place.
Okay.
But I think there's enough differences between that and the check-in that they're different things. And some of it is it's much more common to post photos of a previous event and still geotag them properly, even if you're not there. And also you might make multiple posts for photos at a venue where you wouldn't check in multiple times, right? So,
yeah.
So I've actually had geotags on my site for quite a while because that was pretty straightforward. My homepage is all check-ins now. So here is here's the little geotag on my posts, and normally it's the city and it's done automatically, but I sometimes geotag specific venues too.
Is that a check-in?
Time and location, I think so. Yeah, the fact that you're there at a certain time.
It has to be a there and it has to be a then.
Yeah, and of course you can backdate check-ins, but you're still saying that you were there at that time.
The time has to be there. Yeah.
So yeah, so the check-in is you declaring I was here at this time, and Foursquare's approach to check-ins, especially in the interface, is venue first. So you are presented with a list of venues. You can search for a venue. You create the venue if it doesn't exist, and then you can check into it. That was blocking me because I didn't want to create my venue database, first of all, because it's hard, and it will always be out of date, and will always be incomplete. I only need the venues I care about, the ones I check into, but it's still, it's a challenge, and I didn't know how I wanted to store that. And so I realized that the end result is a post like this, which has a few components. It has who posted it, the name of the place and the time, and often it has the city for more context. And I realized that if I focus on that, of just presenting check-ins, I can sort of remove or postpone the rest of the issues on my site. So I started by sketching out what I wanted them to look like on my site. And I did want them to look different from notes, especially notes with photos. So here's the photo I just posted, and it has text at the top. It then has the photo, and then it has the location. And this is not a check-in. And I want to make sure that my check-ins look very different from this to indicate that. This one is a check-in, and I base this off of Foursquare's design, basically. I have the word "at," which is the only time you'll see this kind of text on my site. Everything else is just content I write. Name of the venue, and I put in this line, which is the time and location. That's the two things on this line that don't exist anywhere else in any other posts that I make. And they're up at the top, right? So it's the.
So that information is in a regular now, but you've rearranged it and prioritized it.
I've rearranged it, yeah. I always have the time I've created the post at the bottom, and I put the location down at the bottom also. But for check-ins, it's up at the top because that's what the check-in is. And then below the check-in, I have the comment that I wrote for the check-in and any photos. And I think I'm pretty happy with this. I think it looks different enough from my other posts that it looks like a check-in. It's not ambiguous. Oh, the other thing is when you are on the permalink, there's also a map at the top.
Yeah.
But I don't show the map on the list views.
So, being lazy, in my let's say I've got a lat long on every note I post, and I've got a timestamp on every post And currently what I do is things like, if I wanted to go to Twitter or wanted to go to Flickr, I've got little buttons that say syndicate to. But if I wanted to say also make this a check-in, that could be another button, another thing
to Foursquare, or just be a check-in on your
site?
Be
a check-in on my site. Somehow note this particular note is type of check.
Mm-hmm.
And then I guess my lazy mind is thinking, can just do a regular note that goes in with the usual thing it has, lat long time, and at some point, either then or next time somebody actually views it, go get the venue from somewhere. Go look up the venue. Or do you think it's vital that you have to choose the venue? You don't want to leave that to a machine. You don't want this.
I have done a lot of experiments with automatic venue searching.
Yeah.
First of all, Foursquare is the best venue database, so you're going to get the best quality venues from there.
We noticed that when Instagram switched over to Facebook.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Anything else, you're going to get much worse results.
Yeah.
Even with Foursquare's excellent database, it is almost impossible to pick the correct venue every time. I would say you can probably get, if you take your own history into account, you can get probably 80% accurate.
But But you could end up saying you
But-
checked into somewhere you do not want to say you checked into.
There's that, and it'll also, especially once you start getting into dense areas,
Yeah.
it's pretty much impossible to tell.
We're on different floors.
Different
so-
floors of the same building, within the block of each other, it's almost impossible to tell. And I've done some of that. Some of my Foursquare check-ins are automatic, because I wrote a script to do it automatically, actually push it in Foursquare a long time ago, back in like 2011. Did not work great.
How about percentage?
I think it was 70 to 80%. It was basically, it would only check in somewhere if I had checked in before to remove a lot of the false positives, but even that was not always accurate.
Okay.
So I do think venue selection is important. And this is sort of reaffirmed by the way that Swarm has done both automatic and now offline check-ins, which are,
You still have a step.
yeah. So I don't think we have any screenshots of the automatic check-in on this wiki, but you know how it'll sometimes say like, hey, we see 3 places you may have checked into, review your history. And then you go back through and it says, were you at any of these places? And sometimes you were, and sometimes you weren't. And you can optionally add them to your history, like retroactively check in. And that's based on its tracking GPS even when you're not using the app.
If you've allowed
If
notifications.
you've allowed it. And it'll say, oh, it looks like you were here for a while, so you probably wanted to check in. The one that I did document on the wiki is offline check-in, which is super awesome. So this is, if you tap the check-in button and you don't have an internet connection, you get this screen.
Which there's no venues shown.
No venues shown. And if you tap check-in offline, this is what happens. Check-in saved for later. Again, no venue selection. And that's it. Then it goes away. Later, once you are back online, this appears. This little notice under the main bar that says, tap here to review one saved offline check-in. When you do that,
Choose the venue.
it then gives you the venue selection. You checked in offline on March 27th, 11:20 a.m. Which of these places were you at?
So it's almost a design principle to never assume a venue
Yeah.
without the user's explicit.
I think there's 2 things going on here. One, it's a principle to not automatically select venues. And 2, it avoids the problem of needing to cache venues offline. Offline check-in becomes record the GPS location and the timestamp.
Right, you got that. Ah.
And that's all you have to record. And it's super easy to do that. And you just punt on the whole venue issue.
Okay.
No caching, no searching offline. Yeah. So, if your note interface, if you had a button saying, I want this to be a check-in,
That's the moment I could go and get venues.
you could then search venues and present a list, and or you can record that. If you skip choosing a venue, you can still save it as a check-in and go back and later add the venue.
Yeah.
Right.
Okay. I might try and do that actually. Like I don't. So on my posting interface is just as usual, text area for text, file input button for photo, and I've got my syndication options currently Twitter, Flickr. I could add the third option, Foursquare, say. And it's only at the moment I do that do I do an AJAX request and say, oh, then I need to find venues here.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
Because the majority of my notes will not be check-ins. They'll just be notes.
So
Or in a separate URL, I guess.
the other thing is, how often do you expect that you're going to want to create check-ins not from Swarm? Because I actually like the Swarm app a lot. They've done a lot of good things in it. They keep making good improvements. They've added the offline check-in. I actually like using it. So I don't even necessarily want to recreate a check-in interface on my own site. Right. The approach I took was I just want the data on my site. So let me work on how I want to show it on my site, and I'm going to keep using Swarm app.
I'm a control freak. I feel like I need to.
Um,
I guess either way, dependent on the API.
exactly, yeah. And that's the thing is like
First,
at the control freak angle and the totally own your content angle takes you down the path of I need to build my own venue database.
Yeah, of course.
And
You
sure
don't
you
want
can,
to-
but there's just a lot of things involved in that you may not want to get into. So that's why I just sort of push that all aside. But the separation of, I want to talk more about the separation of the venue database from how I present these. Because that was what finally got me to do it. I don't have a venue database, even a cached copy of a venue database on my site. Instead, every time so like I said, I use an app I wrote called Own Your Swarm, which looks at my Foursquare account and pushes the check-ins to my site. And every time it makes a check-in on my site, it's pushing the entire venue information to it. So I'll show you what that looks like. Here's the Foursquare API. This is what the API returns. User information, and here's the venue information. So here's the SIP gate. Then it has a bunch of the address, the GPS, categories, other stuff. This website converts that to an H entry, and that's what's on the right over here. This is an H entry check-in.
And that will go to your regular micro. You haven't made a new endpoint for check-ins.
I have not made a new endpoint. I did add support for rendering check-ins specially based on this check-in object, but I didn't change my Microsoft endpoint to do this. So there's the publish date, there's syndication URL, which links to the Swarm version. There's the content like normal, hashtags go into the category field. But then this is what makes it a check-in, is this check-in property with an H card. And the H card is the venue information that it pulls from Foursquare. So it's actually sending the venue every time, which means if I check in to SIPGate again, it sends the whole venue again to my site. And now I could, on my website, say, okay, this looks like the unique URL for the venue. Map it to some database ID or whatever, but I don't. I just skip that. And instead, I just store this H card in the post every time. So my storage is actually YAML, which is like JSON,
key value,
but less punctuation.
Yeah.
And it's actually this H entry as YAML. So I actually stored this whole thing on disk, and that is what turns into this. So that means that I have a bunch of duplicate data. But it also means that if the Foursquare venue is renamed, my old check-ins preserve the history at the time that I checked in, which I think is actually a feature.
But if you want to do something fun with, most visited places, stuff like that, then
I'm missing that right now.
Yeah.
I don't have the ability. I don't have
relational stuff.
Yeah, I don't have the data structure in place to do that. I have all the data.
Yeah.
You can still aggregate later.
Yeah.
I can aggregate it later. Exactly. I have all the data. I can go and index
That's good.
it.
That's the
basically.
avoiding the premature optimization.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I am disappointed it took me this long, because it was basically on my list for like 3 years to put check-ins on my site. And it took me that long to realize, okay, if I just don't address this problem, then I can actually just do it, and it becomes a much easier thing. Yeah, so now I'm collecting the data and I have it, and if I want to index it and do the fun, I do eventually want this link, this venue name to be a link on my site where you can click it and see all of my check-ins from that venue.
Yeah.
But I don't need that to start,
Right.
because I like having this on my site at all, right?
Yeah, this reminds me when I wanted to get photos on my own site, I thought my first step was I need to get all my Flickr photos out of Flickr and onto my site
Right.
first. And that was a blocker for years.
Yep.
Until I was, why don't I start with just posting photos, new photos? And then I'll figure that out later. Still haven't figured it out, but it's like at least I'm posting photos first.
At least there's something, totally. Yeah.
On Instagram, I can post a photo and with Own Your Gram, I could get that sent to my site. That could potentially be a check-in as well as a photo.
If you sent it to Foursquare from Instagram,
In which case, I don't need to use OnlyGram to do that. That would get taken care of automatically on your Swarm. Okay, so that's all. That's done. Okay.
yeah.
Okay.
I've actually never used. So how's it like when you use Instagram and then you send that to Swarm? Is it a check-in or does it just add the photo to the venue?
It's a check-in.
It's a check-in.
Yeah. So it's you explicitly
Okay.
tick it, and it also adds a photo.
Okay.
Although now I don't know how they do venue mapping between Facebook places and Foursquare places.
I basically stopped using Instagram, so
Yeah.
partly because OnlyGram wasn't working for me. So if I get which is probably on my end, if I get that working, I'll test it. See, yeah, it's no longer one-to-one. They switched over to using Facebook's venue database.
How do you send the other information from Swarm, like the coins and
Oh, yeah.
and stuff? So because I'm not seeing it in this check-in.
Oh,
No,
like
yeah.
this.
So that's a fun one.
So how does it work?
Oh, this is good.
So all of my there's a good example here probably from this one. So my site obviously has web mention comments, right?
Yeah.
So I realized that the things that Swarm sends, I can just make them show up like web mentions.
Okay.
So own your Swarm. It first will create the check-in,
Okay.
gets the URL back
Mhm.
from the micropub endpoint, and it waits like 5 seconds, and then it starts sending web mentions to your site.
Okay.
So this is actually has its own URL, and it's its own little post,
Hmm.
and it just is marked up with normal H entry,
Okay.
so that
I get it.
it sends a web mention, and then it just shows up.
Yeah.
So I didn't have to write any new code on my site to handle getting these little things from Swarm.
Except for the sum of coins, right?
Oh, yeah.
That is-
I wrote
So-
one new thing for my site.
So is it like a
It's
new
like-
micro format?
Yeah, it's
Okay. I see.
Swarm
Swarm
coins.
coins.
Yeah, and then I recognize that in my site and I store that separately. But then also Own Your Swarm also does backfeed of likes and comments that
Okay.
people leave on your check-ins, so those show up down here too.
Is that polling for those, or
It is.
okay?
Yeah.
So you've implemented a bridging.
It's like Bridgie, but for only Foursquare.
Wow.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, that was a bit of work, but
Yeah.
it's worth it.
Wow.
Luckily, Foursquare API is actually very full-featured, and it's reasonable rate limits. So I'm not having to do any of the crazy stuff bridging has to do with scraping the pages. I'm actually using the API. But
Potentially, I mean, we could put this on the wish list for Bridgie if Brian were up for adding
mhm.
Swarm support.
Yeah, definitely. Although, I mean, at that point, you're going to need to get the check-ins.
You need URL on your site that corresponds.
Yeah, you need the check-in URL on your site. Bridgie Publish could support Foursquare.
I guess I'm just thinking of
but-
the literal comments, like not the data that happens at the point of check-in, but the thing from Tantec and
Yeah.
like those kind of. So the polling you're having to do, I guess.
Yeah, I could have requested a feature in Bridgie for that instead of writing that as part of Own Your Swarm, but
But it's not either or.
they can both do it.
Yeah.
And Bridgie Publish could also support posting check-ins.
It's smart. Web mention.
But yeah, web mention for all the Swarm coins. I thought it was a pretty good way to do that. So there's one thing that I'm thinking about doing tomorrow for this, because right now the check-in that it sends this all as a JSON post, which is the micropub for nested properties, instead of just a simple form post, because it has this check-in object with an H card. And that means that if your site doesn't recognize JSON posts, or if you don't recognize this check-in property, this won't look like a check-in.
I mean, I could use on your form right now. I'd be posting a note with the.
It'll show up as a note.
Yeah.
Yeah. It'll just basically miss the venue.
Yeah.
You'll get the content and photos will show up on your site, but it won't look like a check-in. So I'm thinking about adding a setting where once you log in here, you could choose either send this, which is the fancy full-featured check-in object, or support the fallback method, which changes the text to say checked in at venue name, and then also includes the text if you put it in there. That way, if you don't write any new code,
I could just use it straight away.
it'll still at least look like a check-in. And the photos will still show up, and you'll get web mention comments, which is pretty neat. So I might end up doing that tomorrow. It's a pretty small thing to change.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
And then later you can be like, this is cool, but I want to format the venue differently, or I want to show a map myself, or that kind of thing. And then you can switch it to send the better venue information separately.
Yeah. I mean, a really lightweight way of. I mean, I'm just thinking greedily again here, but if the category array just had a tag of check-in, then I would automatically have a way of going like, oh, I know this is check-in. I'm going to just do something different. I'll show a map or something.
This is come up with Own Your Gram as well. Some people want to add a category to all their Instagram photos to be able to like either filter them or just have them in a category separately. So I'm thinking about adding again a setting in here.
What gets sent back again? Oh no, we've got syndication. That does not.
Yeah, you have that to recognize it.
Yeah.
But some people want a category tag because like in WordPress it maps to a category, and then you get the nice page for those. So I'm thinking about adding a setting also for both Own Your Gram and Own Your Swarm of like always send this category tag with these posts.
Okay.
But you can right now you would be able to recognize this from the
I could
syndication
totally
URL.
hack something together right now. So does it contain that string? Swarm app, blah blah blah. Okay, use this template. Display it like this.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
So I think my quick project tomorrow will be setting up the fallback H-entry, fallback micropub post.
So the content.
Change the content to checked in at venue name. Give that as an option to people.
Yeah. Okay. So, from your experience and looking at Swarm as well, the check-ins, the design principles don't try to automatically infer a venue from location data. Always let the user choose. Makes sense. You seem to don't try and create a venue database. There's no point.
That's my personal opinion. I
think what Glenn was going for was like, I think what you're saying is absolutely correct if you're traveling a lot.
Yeah.
If it's more about around your town and places it's more about you checking into a lot of places regularly rather than regularly checking into a lot of places. Then I think what the approach Glenn was going for was just slowly over time building up a personal database.
The other advantage of having a personal database is you can create venues that you may not want to put on Swarm. Like they do have a mode for private home.
Yeah.
But you may not want to do that at all. You may not want to put it on Foursquare at all, even in that protected mode.
But you want to log.
But you still want to check in there. So there's definitely advantages to having non-Swarm check-ins, but
yeah, I think it goes to whether it's likely to be the same places a lot,
yeah,
or a lot of different places.
I don't know. I also think there's room for both because I separated the idea of the venue database from the way that I'm storing and displaying check-ins. I can right now manually create a check-in at this table by just creating the H card to describe it. It doesn't need to exist in Foursquare for me to check into it.
Yeah.
Like I can just make a post myself. So I can, as a totally separate project, make a check-in interface that has my own venue list, online or offline, and use the same micropub request to create check-ins on my site. Right. So I can now do that as a different project, but I think separating those was a useful design decision.
Yeah, I think I need to ask myself why, if I want check-ins on my own site, do I want to be primarily, it's about being on my own site, and am I willing to forego posseing to Swarm, basically?
Right. That's the other thing.
And if so, then I'll probably go on Glenn's route of slowly building up a collection of venues. If it's more about I'm using a third-party thing and I'm not getting the benefit of my own site, then this seems to be the
Well, and I really like Swarm because of the little tidbits they send back of like you were last here at this time, and because it has my friends on it, it shows who I'm with and who else is there, and they do a good job of showing history of like when I come back to this town, I'll be looking through the Foursquare app to find somewhere to eat, and it'll show me whether I've been there before or whether my friends have been there before. I like all these things, so I want to keep sending data to them because it ends up providing me use later. Right. Whereas with Twitter, the only incentive I have to send stuff there is because people will see it. And as soon as there's better ways to distribute content to people, I don't need Twitter. But Foursquare actually provides me value back, right?
Yeah.
So I am incentivized to use that app still. So I think it's an interesting bit. Oh, the other thing I should mention, it's not obvious from my homepage, but notice that the check-ins that you see always have either text or a photo. But I actually post a lot more check-ins than that. And what I did was I have this page /check-ins, which lists all my check-ins. And here you'll see a bunch that don't have photos or text.
so you only post it to the front page if there's either a photo or
Exactly.
a bit of
Yeah.
And if it's just I was here.
And I don't
You want that data,
I
but
want the data,
you
but
don't
I
need
don't want my homepage.
Oh, I like that.
Yeah.
Yeah, because I can imagine my homepage would get clogged up.
Yeah, like especially this, like airports, when I check into each gate and the security checkpoint and stuff, or if I'm checking into bus stops at home, it's like not super interesting, but I still want the data.
I guess I need to figure out, do I make check-ins a kind of note, or is it's a separate post type?
I gave up on the whole concept of post types, which it's been working out very well.
I think Glenn came to the same conclusion.
And a check-in is, everything is a note, or everything is a post, and then a post can have different properties. If the post has a check-in property, then it renders this little bit up here.
Yeah, I mean, under the hood, that's what's happening. I said everything is literally a post, and I've hacked like a tags field.
Okay. Yeah. I mean, that's kind of what I have with this /check-ins is stuff gets indexed in this check-ins feed. It's not strictly based on type. Like I can put anything into any of these feeds, but I do have these different feeds that are roughly based on post type.
It counts as a check-in, or it counts as a note, or it counts.
There's nothing semantic about this word check-ins up here. It's just a collection. I also have I have photos. I have actually a better one that illustrates this is health. So there's food, there's walks, food with picture, bike rides show up here, runs show up here. So it's a mix of post types, just collected under the name health. There's also transport, which is walks again, train trips, planes, anything that gets me from one place to another. And these aren't based, like I said, they're not strictly based on type because there's a mix of different things in here. I essentially just have a bunch of filtering rules that as posts get created in my micropub endpoint, it says, does it look like this? Does it have this thing? Does it have this but not this? And then it sorts them into these different channels, and that's what's happening with Checkins. It's just, is there a check-in property? Put it in the Checkins channel, and then it says, is there a photo or is there text? Then also put it on the homepage. But I like that it makes my homepage a little bit less dominated by check-ins, even though there's still a lot.
Is anybody else doing check-ins?
Yeah, there's a few. I'm definitely late to the party on that.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
Quite a long list,
Wow.
actually. Yeah, Barnaby was one of the first. So his starts with the words checked in to venue, and then he has a map. Tom
So
Morris has.
Do you know what their posting interfaces are though? Like they've made their own and
I think Barnaby made his own.
manually tagging specific chickens.
Tom Morris. So he has the venue as a little separate block up on top, kind of like mine actually. Name, venue type, which is a neat one, and that looks like that's the actual link for the location.
Yeah, the Open Street Map. Yeah.
And his comment. Ben put, Checkins has reportedly known
Right.
for quite a while.
Yeah.
Again,
How does Known handle venue, like the database of venues?
I believe I believe it searches Foursquare.
Yeah, it's probably why they have to put the.
Also, I think so. I'm not 100% sure on that. But he also has the words checked in
Mm-hmm.
in the map. Let's see if Kyle's. So this actually doesn't look. Oh, there's the map. Okay. I was going to say, because that looks like a venue tag, not a check-in. But this, I think, makes it obviously the check-in. He has the text checked in at the top.
DJS.
Oh. Let's see if. Oh no. Ryan has check-ins on WordPress. Again with the text checked in.
Is there a WordPress plugin?
Good question.
Just,
With his own modifications.
Probably his own.
Okay.
Check-in referral, check-in person, 2 people info.
So his are like a text description with everything hyperlinked.
Yeah, I mean, it looks like it's a kind of not looking at the URL, it's, he hasn't got it,
Mm-hmm.
siloed into a check-in.
Ben has had check-ins. Everybody seems, these are all like 2014. I'm
Yeah.
way late to this.
Hmm.
But it was because I was stuck on that venue database idea. Ben has the text checked in at also.
Right, but no hyperlink, so that, I mean, simply grabbing
no,
a string from somewhere
Yeah.
is minimum viable, isn't it? And Chris is doing it, okay.
Yeah, it's known. Also, that doesn't
There, that's
look at check.
140 West Main Street.
Because that, when I see something down here, it looks just like,
From a UI point of view.
from the UI, it looks just like picture taken to this location. A month and a half ago.
Yeah, somebody's using this one.
So he has an icon and an at.
Mm-hmm.
No hyperlink on the venue name, but then this must be the actual location. Yeah.
Then it's manually. Okay.
Oh, this was from Twitter cross postings from Swarm. Oh right, that's the
That shows that text.
the Twitter copy version at. Yeah, interesting. So lots of different ways to do it. There seems to be a lot of people who do the checked in at venue name text as the note, which leads me to believe that I definitely should add that to Own Your Swarm, because it's totally acceptable for a lot of people to just that be their final.
That would work for me.
Final product.
There was another tool listed on the site, like Own Your Check-in, which I think some others use. So what's the difference between that one and yours?
So it's really funny, actually.
I mean,
what happened is... Oh, okay, yeah. So this is even more complicated. Ryan wrote Own Your Check-in that is like Own Your Gram, but it works with Facebook check-ins. And Facebook venues are terrible, so I never even considered that. But there's another one, Own Your Check-in, which is quite a long time ago, after I'd written Own Your Gram, Felix forked it, turned it into Own Your Check-in, which uses Foursquare API. And it's basically Own Your Swarm before I wrote Own Your Swarm, based on my own code. But there were just a couple of details about this that I wanted it to work differently. I wanted to send a check-in object instead of this is a little flatter. Sends a couple of it basically has like a bunch of properties in the H entry instead of a nested check-in object. Yeah. So I wrote it differently and called it Own Your Swarm instead. But it's really funny that this is a fork of Own Your Gram, which I wrote, and then I ended up writing a new version anyway. Yeah.
Yeah, maybe I do something like check-ins tomorrow.
Mm-hmm.
You can certainly test straight away using Own Your Swarm.
As soon as I launch that change anyway. Oh yeah.
Well, I mean, look, just send
well, this does send a JSON post, so you'll have to recognize JSON micropub.
I can't remember now.
I can't remember if you do or not.
I can't remember what my own code is.
Like this is actually what is sent to your endpoint with the content type JSON header.
Well, what would normally get sent to like
form post?
Oh.
So this won't show up as like in the PHP with the $_post. It won't show up in that.
Okay.
Yeah, but I'm gonna change. I'm gonna do that first thing tomorrow. I wrote pretty good docs on this too. Oh, and it also I forgot to. The other thing this does, another nice UI thing that Foursquare does, or the Swarm app does, is if you have a slow internet connection and you have a photo attached to your check-in, it'll create the check-in first and then uploads the photo afterwards, and the photo might fail. And you can also always go back and add a photo to a check-in later. What that means is by the time that Own Your Swarm sends a check-in to your site, it may be old, may be out of date, because the photo may have ended up at the Foursquare API after that happened. Because this happens, it goes to your site very quickly, because it's all done with real-time webhooks. So I had to add a polling task to
wait for a photo,
check old check-ins for a while and see if photos appear, and if they do, it sends a micropub update request to add a photo. So if you don't support micropub updates, you might end up missing some of the photos. And as soon as you do support micropub updates, you can get all the photos sent to you. So
looks like wrap it up in there. Time for photo before they run in for lunch.
yeah, I guess that's it.